Sandy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do a book review. We're going to dive into that discussion in just a second. I want to start by welcoming you to the channel and asking you to please subscribe if you enjoy book reviews and booktube tags and bookish talk and book essays. This is a channel for you. Welcome. All right. And also, if you enjoy mayhem and chaos and people staring at their screens to figure out what they're doing, this might also be a channel for you. Okay. What I'm doing here is checking my screen because I don't have a printer that works. So I have typed up and put on my screen all the things that I'm going to be reading to you guys this afternoon. Let me start by saying this will not be a rant. We're not going to eviscerate this book, but we're going to have an honest review and discussion of Silver Elite. I'm also going to straight up read most of this from the actual script I prepared. It's not just an outline today, but a script, because I want to make sure I keep the facts right and don't say something defamatory off the cuff. Yeah, it's going to be one of those. All right, I'm aware that many other channels on different platforms and BookTube have discussed this book in some pretty negative ways. Nothing I bring to you today is going to be earth-shattering. Guys, while I disliked Silver Elite, I'm going to hold true to our motto here at Sandy Says Read. You can always find something good in a book, right? I have at least one kind thing to say about this also, so I'm going to say it. I also have some misgivings about the crafting of this book, and we're going to discuss those. And I also need to give a shout out to a great BookTube video for some of our research and understanding of AI. And I need to tell some book talkers to settle right down about the doxing conversation. Let's begin. All right, we're going to begin with the specs, as we do here at this channel. The specs are Silver Elite. Silver Elite was released May 6th of 2025 by Del Rey. It is allegedly by Danny Francis, who is repped by Kimberly Brower of Park, Fine, and Brower Literary Management. This special edition is 512 pages. It's written in first-person point of view, present tense, which annoyed me greatly. The flashbacks, the info dumps, and some of the dialogue items from other characters are in past tense. So that was interesting. Let me read you the back cover. My name is Wren Darlington. I've been hiding who I am my entire life. Today will be no different. Yeah. So I'm also going to read you the inside cover flap. It's in reverse type, so bear with me. Let's see if my eyes can do this for you guys. All right. In the first book of a sizzling dystopian romance series, psychic gifts are a death sentence, and there are rules to survival. Trust no one, lie to everyone, and whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. Trust no one. Wren Darlington has spent her whole life in hiding, honing her psychic abilities and aiding the rebel uprising in small ways. On the continent, being modified means certain death, and Wren is one of the most powerful mods in existence. When one careless mistake places her in the hands of the enemy and she's forced to join Silverblock, their most elite training program, she's finally handed the perfect opportunity to strike a devastating blow from inside their ranks. Lie to everyone. But training for Silverblock can be deadly, especially when you're harboring dangerous secrets and living in close quarters with everyone who wants you dead. And whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. As the stakes grow ever higher, Wren must prove herself. But that's easier said than done when your commanding officer is the ruthless and infuriatingly irresistible Cross Redden, who doesn't miss anything when it comes to her. He misses something. And as war rages between mods like her and those who aim to destroy them, Wren must decide just how far she's willing to go to protect herself and how much of the continent is worth saving. Let me go back to the screen, you guys, and give you guys the Sandy Synopsis. Right. At the risk of repeating what others have shared in reviews before, let me give my 30,000-foot view synopsis here. You guys, buckle up. Wren Darlington sneaks out of a one-night stand with a soldier whose name she can't remember into a town square where a kid gets attacked by wolves or dogs or coyote things. Rather than ignore this, Wren does the only positive act of the book, where it feels like she has agency. And she shoots the white dog wolf creature thing in a way that brings immediate attention to her awesome sauce. The government hears of her awesome sauce and investigates her, finds her and her uncle's ranch within a day, captures her uncle while she's away from the ranch, and executes him, leaving her to be captured too when she starts making poor decisions. Then her agency seems to leave her and things start happening to her instead of her doing things to advance her story. The government forces her to join a soldier group called Silver Block to train to fight for the government. Amid all of this, Wren finds herself unwillingly attracted to the lead commander of the soldier group she's training to join, even though she hates the government, hates the soldier group, and hates the guy, whose name I couldn't remember when preparing this synopsis, but it's Cross Redden, who we just talked about. It takes her to page 164 to realize she needs to think up a plan. Let's look at page 164 together. The uprising isn't saving me. That much is clear. They don't care that Julian Ash was executed, and they don't care that Wren Darlington is in the command's clutches. I need to come up with a plan to save my own ass, a real plan, one I think and rethink and then think about again before implementing. I need to take a page out of Uncle Jim's book, out of my mother's book, and use some restraint. I can't steal a motorcycle just because it happens to be left unattended. Finding a way off this base will require a good, solid plan. And every good, solid plan starts with one thing: scouting. And I wrote in the margin, it's taken her to page 164 to decide she needs to think through a plan. Everything leading up to page 164 has been, you guys, it just felt like she had no agency and she was just letting things happen to her. And then finally, page 164, she decides, oh, I should do something for myself. And we'll talk about more. Okay, continuing the Sandy synopsis. I believe the goal of the story is to have Wren and Cross hook up and shag and then take down the government together. It's a dystopian enemies to lovers romantasy sci-fi, but I only made it to page 260 before I gave up. So yes, I'm admitting to you guys right now, right here, I DNF'd the book. I did not finish. I got up to page, what did I just say? 260? Page 260. At the end of chapter 27. And I quit. I stopped. I just didn't go back to it because I did not care. And I also thought, I believed in my mind that I was reading something that had an awful lot of AI assistance. Okay, so now let's discuss. There are pros and cons to the book, to be fair. Sadly, the cons far outweighed the pros, and that's why I finally gave up. The biggest con for me was the belief that I was reading something written with the aid of generative AI. Too many passages and phrases felt unhuman. But I want to be cautious in how I discuss those passages now, because if a human being wrote those things without turning to an LLM for assistance, I'm going to be shredding a fellow author out there. And I don't like to do that. It's not kind. But I, in my brain, sincerely believe some of these passages were written by something that doesn't understand human nature. We're going to talk about just a couple of these, and you guys can make your own guesses from there. Okay, I'll suggest watching Meredith Novako's Silver Elite video for a few more of these. Okay, I'll put a link to that video in the drop-down box below. The reason I'm suggesting hers as the quintessential video on Silver Elite is because she has a background in computer science, and she starts out her video around the 12 or 15-minute mark with an excellent discussion of exactly what generative AI does to write something and the way it selects the next logical word from the data it has at its disposal. Around the 42-minute mark of Meredith's video, she gives the individual sentences she found in Silver Elite that allegedly must have been allegedly written by an AI and not a person, allegedly. One of those I want to talk about is, the cell is painted a dull shade of gray that hurts my eyes. That's the line in the story. The cell is painted a dull shade of gray that hurts my eyes. Now, I totally agree with Meredith that the phrasing is bizarre, but in the author's defense, I've read some unedited self-published material that rivals a dull shade of gray or beige or tan or whatever, hurting eyes, ears, sensitivities, and so on. It's possible a human wrote that, and no editor noticed the oddity of it. But there are plenty of other examples Meredith gives in her highly entertaining video, and I have a few to add. I don't think Meredith mentioned the wacky one on page 228. So let's go to page 228 and read it together. My rage is abruptly doused by a bucket of desperation that almost knocks me off my feet. Now, this is Wren talking. My rage is abruptly doused. It's the weirdness, the wackiness that's happening is we've got phrases. My rage is abruptly doused by a bucket of desperation. And then something almost knocks her off her feet. Okay, so is the water from the bucket knocking her off her feet? Is desperation knocking her off her feet? Something's, it's weird. And I just wrote out to the side, what? And then underlined it. It's just weird. It's odd. And either a human or an editor would have fixed that. It's just odd. Okay, so weird, odd things like that lead me to believe that maybe an AI that was just picking the next logical word in its thought. Well, AI doesn't think, but the next logical word. That's what makes me think an AI was doing that. Okay. Is that just poor writing that an editor didn't fix? Or is that an AI choosing the next logical word and missing the mark? But there are other passages that are more subtle in their lack of humanity. Let's go to page 31, when Wren is escaping her uncle's ranch. This is chapter 3, and she's been out riding her favorite horse. Uncle Jim has telepathically sent her a message warning her of danger, so she's ridden the horse to a hidden cellar. So let's go to page 31. Hold, please, I'll get there. Finally got to page 31. Okay, Wren is saying, okay, she's cut the link between her and a friend that she's communicating telepathically with. And she jumps into the saddle. She rides. Okay, at the back of the wooden lean-to is a trap door, which I crank open to reveal the metal ramp below. I crouch and slide my way down the ramp toward the dusty corner where we stashed the bike. The crawl space isn't much taller than the motorcycle, so I'm stuck in that crouched position as I roll it up the ramp, along with a canvas go bag. I check the mic's solar battery to ensure it has a charge. My bag contains extras in case I need them. Outside, I warily study the approaching clouds, thick and gray, hopefully not an omen of things to come. I tear my gaze off the darkening sky and run my hand over Kelly's coarse mane. Go home, girl. I smack her on the rump and off she goes. She knows her way back. I just pray the soldier stationed down there isn't trigger happy. If he kills my beloved mare, I'm going to hunt him down, put a bullet in his skull, and then hunt his ghost down too. I take the back roads to the village, stashing the bike in a metal shed behind a small brick home whose owners died a couple of years back. The house hasn't been assigned to anyone else yet, so it's stood abandoned ever since. The shed is a network drop location, conveniently located less than 50 yards from the edge of the forest. I'm about to exit the shed when I hear it. A low mechanical buzz, like the vibration of a hummingbird's wings, if those wings were metal. Surveillance drone. Okay, so I wrote in the margin, does this bike make noise? A human author would know how a motorbike engine carries. Okay, and that, I think that's a valid comment for me to have made at that moment. Let me see what I wrote here. I want to know if the motorbike makes noise. A human author would have known to ask and answer that question. At the very least, the editor should have asked it. Because I think every reader reading that passage is going to be like, okay, wait, people are hunting her. She's sending the horse back. She could see the dude. So with his gun and wondering if he's trigger happy, and now she's riding this bike, it's going to make noise. It's going to make a sound, shouldn't it? I mean, even if solar powered bikes in this time period don't make noise, don't they make some kind? I mean, it's a motorcycle. I'm just thinking it's going to make a sound. And a human would have asked, how far does that sound carry? And shouldn't people have been chasing her? I'm carrying on too much about that. I'm sorry. There are many things an editor should have caught in this manuscript. On page 7, we have the character reveal through reflection in a mirror, which is a huge no-no. I mean, as an author, as a writer, this is one of the first lessons you learn. On page 7, in the bathroom, I stand behind the door and listen to the sound of his footsteps. I exhale in a rush, waiting until those footsteps retreat. The reflection in the mirror shows a flush to my bronzed skin, but sex will do that to you. My eyes reveal my impatience. The soldier lauded their color several times tonight. Honey brown, specked with gold, with yellow gold. I think it's supposed to say speckled, but that's fine. Honey brown. The point is she's looking in the mirror to describe herself to the reader. And that is a crutch. That's lazy writing, and you're not supposed to do that. And an editor would have stopped Danny from doing that. I don't think an AI did that. Well, maybe, I don't know. An AI could have learned to do that from something. An editor should have stopped it. Page 15, we have just one example of pacing, which could have been the AI unfamiliar with human interaction. Allegedly, that it could have been. Let's look at page 15. This is in the beginning when Wren is trying to sneak away from the soldier she just shagged. He stalked her out to the town square. And let's see, where there are some telepathic conversations happening in between him trying to get her name and number. Okay, so this guy, apparently she's just such a good lay. She's so good in the sack that he can't just let her go, right? So he is like following her out into the town square, and he's like hanging on to her, and he's got to know her name. He's got to know where she's from, where he can find her again. And she's having a telepathic conversation with her friend Tara. And the way that we see the telepathic conversations, the conversations that are happening in the minds, is with a different typeface. So I don't know how to tell you guys that. Reading it. I'll hold up my hand. How's that sound? When I hold up my hand, it's words that are in their brains. When I don't hold up my hand, it's words that are being said out loud. As if on cue, I feel a hard poke in my mind. Jim's signature. Uncle Jim. Jim's signature. He's asking to link, and I let him. It's late. Come home. His voice is a rumble. I resist the urge to roll my eyes. On my way. Stay for just one dance, Tana begs. I really can't. Truthfully, I would stick around and hang out with Tana for a while if this soldier weren't glued to my side. Ugh, what is his name? I think it's Max. Or maybe it's Mark. Given what we did earlier, I feel bad asking, so I touch his arm. Okay, honey, it's been fun, but I have to go now. Tana looks ready to erupt with laughter again. Honey? Shut up. I couldn't remember his name. Is it Max or Mark? His name is Jordan. Oh, I was very far off. The more important question is, who is the gorgeous jackass staying at the inn? My heartbeat is still a bit off-kilter from that explosive encounter. I know nothing of a gorgeous jackass. I didn't see anyone other than the soldiers checking in today. Or maybe I did see him and just forgot. Was he a soldier? No idea, but trust me, you would remember this face. It was a remarkable face, and totally wasted on a jerk like him. If I'm going to be dazzled by a face, it has to belong to a gorgeous woman. Otherwise, I'm blissfully oblivious. Let me take you home. Jordan interrupts our silent conversation, his hopeful gaze locked on me. Okay, so this entire page, most of this entire page has been internal, like the telepathic conversation between Tana and Wren, while this guy, this soldier who is just lusting after her, is hanging on her side. So these two are having this conversation back and forth, while he's just standing there. Jordan is just standing there. And then he interrupts. He has no clue that these two are mods. If he did, there'd be a problem. If he knew they were mods, it would be an issue. Okay, so I wrote out to the side, what does the soldier think is happening while these two are mind talking? A human would know this exchange takes time. If a human was writing this, the human would give Jordan something. The human would have Jordan like question why they're just standing there looking at each other. I mean, a human would give us something with Jordan here and make Jordan question why they're just looking at each other. Yeah. In my opinion. Then on page 123, I think we have a flashback of domestic violence. So let's go to page 123. And you guys just, this is your trigger warning. I think it's domestic violence. Uncle Jim had dragged me out of the town square, where Tana and I had been sharing some pints of ale with a few Hamlet boys. Hamlet is their town. Much older boys. He humiliated me in front of my friends, hauled me over his shoulder, and threw me into the passenger side of the truck while I cursed and shouted at him. He ignored my protests and started driving home. Didn't even look at me as I growled at him to turn the truck around and take me back to my friends. And I wrote here, is this domestic violence or just dysfunctional family? Or tough love? I don't know. And I wrote here, shouldn't an editor have flagged this or softened this or remembered that we're supposed to love Uncle Jim? We're supposed to miss him and feel bad that he was executed. I get that we're showing Wren in this whole passage that I didn't read. In the whole passage, we're showing Wren has a power she can't really control. But this domestic violence scene, it's not really domestic violence. This little violence scene, it throws Uncle Jim under the bus. And I don't know we intended to throw him under the bus. I think an editor should have jumped in there and done something with that. On page 124, this is one of many examples of dialogue, like info dumping, interrupting dialogue. I don't know if it's the best example I could have chosen, but throughout the half of the book that I read, we have instances where, two characters are talking, and in between the lines of dialogue, we have exposition or we have a flashback. So here is an example of a flashback. Again, I don't know that this was the best example I could have chosen, but it gives you an idea of what's happening, okay? We have the internal dialogue, the telepathic dialogue again. So hand up when they're internal talking, when they're talking telepathically, you guys. All right, we have Wolf and Wren talking to one another. It was an accident, Wolf says. And my hand is down, which means now we're in her brain just thinking. It was a moment of raw, immature rage. Uncle Jim had dragged me out of the town square, where Tana and I had been sharing some pints of ale with a few Hamlet boys. Okay, so this violent scene that we just discussed, that is a flashback that's interrupting the dialogue that we were just having with Wolf. Okay, so go through that. We were halfway to the ranch, yada, yada, yada. She yells at her uncle to turn the truck around, and he did. Like, she just told him to do it, and he did do it. So we're seeing this power that she can't really control. And he did, giving the steering wheel a tug so sharp and abrupt that our truck flipped itself over. I am aware of all this, I tell Wolf, but that doesn't negate how terrifying it was. We were lucky to be alive. So we're back in her brain again, hands down. Jim was lucky to be alive, Uncle Jim. I always wondered if he'd have preferred I died that night. I know he loved me, but I was a burden to him. I know I was. I pressed my lips together to suppress a sob and distract myself by lobbing an accusation at Wolf. Somehow you always turn conversations around to make them about me. Tell me why you sound so exhausted tonight. And so he tells her something, and she's like, it's a rare glimpse of vulnerability from Wolf. I know how he feels, though, yada, yada, yada. So there are just moments throughout the first half of the book that I read where we're having dialogue, and it gets interrupted. And I wrote on the screen here in the script, there's a smooth way to do this. There's a smooth way to interrupt dialogue or to insert some exposition into dialogue. Humans and editors can make this smooth and seamless. There's a way to do it. You can. I mean, it's a device that authors use, but it felt like it wasn't smooth in many of the instances where it occurred in this book. All right. What's my hang up with all this? I have no patience with writers who farm out their creativity and brain power to generative AI. And the more I read, the more I felt like I was reading something that leaned on that crutch. It may be that the author did not lean on AI, and the problems that other booktubers and I see in the text can be explained away by, this is a novice writer. I mean, if we're assuming this is Dani's first book, we can see she did create a world that's derivative of other works. And there are a ton of other reviewers ranting about that. I don't need to. She did create a cast of characters who felt immoral and overdone to me. I didn't care about Wren's journey, and I certainly didn't care about the soldiers vying for spots in the Silver Elite block. The problems other booktubers and I see in the text might be explained away by the use of a pair of authors who didn't work well together. And that's where the subject of who wrote this comes in. So let's talk about why I tried to read Silver Elite and why I care who wrote it. Let's talk about why it matters. I purchased this book as my Book of the Month fantasy pick for May. It was a pre-release special edition, and I no longer remember the teaser sentence that intrigued me beyond the intriguing front cover and the pretty edges. See that nice? The offerings at Book of the Month for fantasy are usually pretty slim pickings, so this looked interesting when I saw it, and I went for it without knowing anything about the firestorm going on around it. Apparently, people were already talking about the missing author back in early May. At that time, I think the mystery was just that. Folks were wondering who the author was because it was a mystery. I saw a bunch of people online, after I ordered it, I saw a bunch of people online asking, how can a debut belong to a best-selling author if the author's never written a book before? Now, there are ways, and with the promotion behind this book, yes, it is absolutely possible that this book was a bestseller at its release. Pre-orders and such count toward that number, and so on. It's possible in the publishing world. Anyway, that's not an argument for the author being fake. Then there were people pointing out that there's no digital footprint for Dani Francis. If you go online, you can't find her promoting her debut novel. Her profile on her agent's website loops with her own website. Her TikTok and Instagram are managed by assistant and account run by assistants, respectively. Now that stuff caught my attention. As an author, I can tell you, even the big 5 trad published authors must get online and hawk their wares. They must set up their book signings either through the publishing house's marketing arm or with their agent. If their agent does that, contracts will stipulate what an agent does and does not assist with. I'd like to hear from you all. If you know of any publishers that have done all the marketing and promotion for a debut author out there, tell me in the comments below if you've seen this happen in modern times. I'm seriously in awe of the idea that a literary agent or publishing house in today's publishing climate would do all the marketing work on a debut author's behalf. There was a book podcast titled Silver Elite by Dani Francis, a thrilling espionage adventure book, prior to the release with an AI-looking image to promote it. And you know, that's a mistake I just made. The book podcast came out on May 8th, and the book, I believe, was released May 6th. I think so. Those they were almost simultaneous. It wasn't prior to the release. Anyway, let's see. It came out with an AI-looking image to promote it. And by the way, if you do a search for pictures of Dani Francis, that podcast image comes up as if that's her. The podcast itself sounds like 2 actors reading a script, much like I'm doing today. Well, if they do a better job of it. The podcast is a breakdown of the book, and it was released May 8th on YouTube if you want to listen to it. If you go to the Park, Fine, and Brower Literary Management site as of July 27th, the day I'm filming this, to reach Dani, you email a web address that is looped to the literary agent. As of July 27th, Dani still doesn't have a profile picture. But let's be fair and factual. 24 of their authors don't have profile pictures. And I thought it was interesting that those 24 are all in the fiction category. And you guys, I wrote them all down. Do you want me to read the list? I don't think I need to read the list. There's 24 of them. All right. Okay, does that mean 24 of their authors are artificial? Of course not. Harper Lynn has a cupcake logo for her profile picture. Psalm Sketcher has a cartoon avatar of herself for her picture. When you click on Tyler King's empty box, you get her bio where there's a link to her Facebook and website. She has an actual bio and a Goodreads account. 23 of these 24 authors have traceability. Now, I'm not saying every author has to be traceable. We have reasons we would hide from the world. There are crazy stalkers out there. But when the book review community brings your existence into question, you might want to offer proof of existence and proof of authorship. Please don't misunderstand my next statement, okay? Buckle up. I am absolutely not comparing Silver Elite to any of the Bronte works. But when Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell had to prove they were separate entities, Charlotte and Anne traveled to their publisher to do just that. They not only shared that their books were written by 3 separate people, but by 3 women, 3 sisters. And you can read about Emily's dismay over being outed in different autobiographies. My point is, there comes a time when you have to stand up for your work, if you exist. Now, there are book talkers out there who were, in the early days, freaking out about the author being doxxed. Let me just say, it's not doxing to seek clarification on authorship. I can't speak for the early reviewers' intentions, but I can speak for mine. I want to know this book was written by a person, by a human. I'm of the mindset that it was, albeit I believe there was LLM help. As a single female author, I can appreciate a degree of anonymity. There are reasons someone would use a pseudonym to achieve that. For example, Anne Rice used the pen names A.N. Roquelaure for 4 medieval erotic novels, and Anne Rampling for 2 erotic fiction novels. It's a little bit different from her vampire and witch stuff, okay? Isaac Asimov wrote some YA books under Paul French. Michael Crichton wrote under John Lang while he was still at medical school, and co-wrote a thriller with his brother under the name Michael Douglas in 1971. Dean James writes his Cat in the Stacks series under the name Miranda James. You might want a pen name for different genres, for different age groups, to prevent your employer from freaking out over your side hustle, and so on. You can probably think of more reasons to write under a pen name, and you're welcome to list those in the comments below. When I wrote She's Not Broken, I wanted a little bit of distance between the story and myself. Plus, it was contemporary women's fiction, which was way outside of epic fantasy or speculative fiction. So I came up with the name Kelsey Day, researched that, did some marketing thought behind that, but I put it under a pen name. What I think needs to happen to prevent doxing and to settle the reading and review community's collective minds is to have either the publisher or agent come forward and say, definitively, Danny Francis is the amalgamation of X number of authors in our publishing house, and this book was written by them and only them. Or fess up and say, Danny Francis is the pseudonym we created after a team of writers used copious AI prompts to develop this novel. Or read the acknowledgments in the back of Silver Elite to us and finish with, we swear and affirm Danny Francis is a real person who must remain anonymous for her protection from events that are no one's business but hers and her family's. This book was written by her and her alone. That kind of transparency is, sadly, required in today's publishing arena. We have authors like Lena McDonald who are accidentally leaving their AI prompts in their finished manuscripts, proving that published works can't be trusted right now. We have unscrupulous, unethical corporations forming for the purpose of pumping out as much AI-generated content as possible to make quick and easy money off the unsuspecting public. A group of tech bros formed a company they unironically named Spines with the goal of publishing 8,000 books in 2024. I invite you to make a note of that name so you don't accidentally support their greed. All that to say, I believe at least one human is behind the book Silver Elite, but used prompts to assist in its writing. And I believe Del Rey should either investigate to prove or disprove that and come forward with their results. And here's the big fat evidence I have behind believing a human was the instigator of this story. There's a great passage on page 36 that sounds human. It's a flashback. Okay, it's a flashback while Ren is on a train to another city. She's remembering her uncle teaching her how to use her telepathic gift. So let's go to page 36. I'm going to have to edit out one of the birds getting a little wacky in the background there. Where were we? Okay, this is when she was much younger. So the language is a little stilted because it's from a kid's point of view. Keeping my lids squeezed shut, I mumbled, I don't know what frequencies is. Frequencies, like, he paused, ocean waves. One wave gives off positive energy. That's for talking. The other gives off negative energy. That's for listening. The first thing you'll see when you break through someone's shield is an open door. Beyond the door, black waves are trying to push you out. Do you see them, little bird? Uh-huh. Good. What is down the hallway? I interjected. Another long pause. He cleared his throat. Ignore it for now. Focus on the black waves. Push your way through them until they clear up, and then tell me what you hear. I remember concentrating so hard, my closed eyelids began to twitch. Jim hadn't expected me to succeed on the first try. Children rarely do. So he was visibly shocked when I squeezed past the waves of negative energy trying hard to repel me. My expression bloomed with joy. You're proud of me. I bit my lip, straining to hear more of his thoughts. My happiness faded. You're afraid of me, I accused. No, Jim corrected, his voice gruff. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for you, little bird. I didn't understand back then what he meant by that. And they go on with this scene. She goes on with this scene, showing her uncle trying to help her with telepathy. And that is a nice little scene right there. Okay. I mean, I think it's well done. It's a little bit clunky, but it's nicely done. It sounds and it feels human. It feels like a human touch. Okay. And I put in here, it might be a little clunky, but it feels human to me. And I want more books, even if they're clunky, to remain human. Let me finish with this quote from Kurt Vonnegut. Practice any art, music, singing, dancing, acting, drawing, painting, sculpting, poetry, fiction, essays, reporting, no matter how well or badly, not to get money and fame, but to experience becoming, to find out what's inside you, to make your soul grow. Thumbs up for being human. Thumbs up for making our souls grow. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this review and discussion of Silver Elite. I so much appreciate you guys being patient and waiting on me to get to this. Thank you for putting up with me reading most of it. I wanted to get the facts straight, and I didn't want to go too far off script and say anything defamatory. So thank you for putting up with me reading it. Thank you so much for tuning in.